Good evening, everyone. Kashit madam, Dr. Vijaya ma'am, are you there?
Hello,
Yes.
Dr. Pawar. I am available. I have joined the session.
Okay, ma'am. Dear participants, all are requested to please mute your microphones to avoid any disturbances. The questions will be answered in the last 5 minutes of session. Kindly note down the questions and ask them at the last. The session will be recorded for the further reference. Now let's begin with the session. Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you to the Faculty Development Program organized by Bharati Vidyapeeth's College of Engineering for Women, Pune, in association with National Institute of Hydrology, IIT Roorkee. We are excited to have you here for this enriching experience. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's Faculty Development Program, Dr. Vijaya Par, Associate Professor in the Department of Engineering and Telecommunication Engineering at Bharati Vidyapeeth's College of Engineering for Women, Pune. Dr. Pawar holds a PhD in Electronics Engineering from Bharati Vidyapeeth Deemed University, specializing in pattern recognition, ME in Electronics from Walchand College of Engineering, and BE in Electronics from Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad. She has an impressive 29 years of teaching experience, and she is recognized PG and PhD guide at Savitribai Phule Pune University, currently mentoring 3 research scholars. Her contributions to academia have been widely recognized. She has received 5 Best Paper Awards in IEEE conferences, the Best Teacher Award from Janhit Pratishthan, Pune, and appreciation from Bharati Vidyapeeth and Savitribai Phule, Pune University for her mentorship and academic contributions. She has also played a key role as an academic and research coordinator at SPPU Pune from 2009 to 2019 and has successfully organized the ICRTS TM 2024 International Conference as a co-convener. Dr. Pawar actively contributed to research, securing over rupees 11,66,500 in AICTE grants and additional research funding from Savitribai Phule Pune University. Her work includes a BCUD SPPU funded project on DFT core generator, and she continues to drive innovation in her field. Her additional contributions are academic and research coordinator at Savitribai Phule Pune University, NBA coordinator of ENTC Engineering Department, and NAC departmental coordinator. With her vast experience and dedication to academia and research, we are honored to have with us today. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Vijaya Pahar ma'am. We are honored to have with us today, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Now we look forward you for your valuable insights. Now I kindly request ma'am to start the session. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Seetal Pawar, madam, for the nice introduction. Good evening, all the participants. At the start of this session, I'm thankful to Bharati Vidyapit Management and our principal, Professor Dr. Pradeep P. Jadhav sir, for encouraging this ATAL FDP proposal. I'm also thankful to Computer Engineering Department for taking the initiative, especially Professor Dr. Sonali Kadam Madam and Professor Anjali Kadam Madam. So as it is rightly mentioned by AICTE, there should be at least one session related to basic research methodology. So today's session is concerned with research methodology. Is the screen visible? Hello, is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kadam. I'm here today for elaborating the basic research methodology. I have divided my presentation in two parts. Very first part is research methodology, and second and very important part is publishing a scientific paper. So now everybody is familiar. Almost 20% faculty members have already completed the research journey, their doctorate. So everybody is little bit or maybe more familiar with this research methodology concept. But those who are doing their MTech degree, master's degree, and maybe pursuing their research journey, there are few steps for them. So this particular session consists of research methodology, research objectives, motivation of the research, type of research, research flow, why to write the papers, how to write the scientific papers, abstract writing, chapter writing, then discussions related to related to technical examples, poster papers, and review papers. So in the first part, I'll elaborate about the research methodology. Everybody is familiar with the word research. Nowadays, research is a keyword. So there are so many rankings that are purely related to research. There is a scope for expansion as far as this research is concerned. But before going ahead with all the steps and fundamental related to research, let me tell you about the definition and scope of research. So what is research? Research is very common phenomenon or terminology. So this research refers to search for knowledge. But why to go ahead with research methodology? This research methodology is a systematic way to solve the research problem. We can say that it is just studying how research is conducted scientifically and systematically. So research means search of a knowledge. We may define this research in scientific and systematic term as a gaining of information on a specific topic. Now everybody is familiar with this fundamental thing, right? But there is special definition in English directory related to this research. What is research in English, Advanced English Dictionary? It is a careful investigation or inquiry, especially through search for new facts in any branch of knowledge. As many of us are from engineering, so my today's focus is related to engineering research. So what are the objectives of research? Very first objective of research is to discover the answers to the questions. For first few slides, bear with me as this is a theoretical approach. So we are trying to have the answers for few queries, for few questions, and that too through the application of scientific procedures. So the main aim of research is to find out the hidden truth and something which is not yet discovered. So research objectives and their grouping. What should be the very first objective of the research? Very first objective should be to achieve, to gain something, some insights, so that we can be familiar with a phenomenon related to our research studies. That must be the first objective. Second is, we are trying to portray accurate characteristics of a particular research. That could be any situation, that could be any group, or that could be any type of descriptive studies even. That must be the second objective. Third and very important objective of research is to determine the frequency with which something occurs or with which it is associated with something else. We can call this as diagnostic studies. This is diagnostic research studies. As you know, nowadays there is much scope as per as this diagnostic research studies are concerned. It's not only biomedical diagnosis, it is related to diagnostics of many other things like machines also. The next objective is to test a hypothesis of causal relationship between the variable. That means we are trying to have the hypothesis test related to the research, right? So many things are there that we can put it as an objective of a research. What is objective in our terms? In our terms, we are trying to define something, and in order to achieve that particular aim, that particular vision, I can say we are having objective. Objective means certain steps that we are taking so that we can achieve our aim. So this objective means 3-4 steps that we are defining. We may have 6 steps, we may have 2 steps, we may have 4 steps. Likewise, we are going to define the steps, and these steps are concise steps, right? And we are calling these concise steps as objective. In order to solve certain problem, I am going to define some steps, and that steps are having some scientific words, right? Which are the scientific words for engineering? Many are there. But for example, I'll take the word like to survey, to study, to validate, to perform, to analyze. These are the words, these are the verbs that we can undertake, that we can use under objectives. So these are the things that we can take as an objective as far as research is concerned. We'll take some case studies so that you will get acquainted with objective. Those who have already completed their doctoral degree, these faculty
Ma'am,
members or hello?
your slides are not moving. Can you please reshare the slides?
Okay, ma'am.
Actually, change the window where you sharing the screen, right? Change the window, ma'am.
Madam, is it visible now?
Your first slide is visible. Yes. Now the content slide is visible.
Research methodology?
Third slide. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
visible.
now can you get it? Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay, fine. So I have talked about the research objectives, right? So objective, everybody is familiar. We are supposed to have some verbs, and with respect to that, we are trying to have some steps so that we can achieve our own aim, right? So whenever we are going ahead, the next question is, what is the motivation in the research? Sheetal madam, is the slide visible now?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Okay,
visible.
fine. Thank you. So why to undertake the research? That is $1 million question. right? So this is very fundamental question and it is equally important, right? So the possible motives for doing the research is we may get PhD degree. Along with that, we may get monetary benefits. That might be the first motto. Second one is desire to face the challenges in solving the unsolved problem. That is, it is concerned over the practical problems that initiate the research. The next is desire to get intellectual joy of doing some creative work, right? And many times we, being engineers, are doing this particular thing, right? We are trying to have something that is called as intellectual properties with us, right? So that might be the next objective as far as motivation is concerned in the research. Desired to be the part of service to the society. These many are the motivations, but these are not restricted to the motivations that I have enlisted here. There might be many more motivation. That means sometimes there are the directives from government, right? Government means our apex bodies are having some conditions related to the recruitments. That means there must be a PhD degree as far as few posts are concerned, right? The candidate, the employee must be PhD holder. Then only it's possible to have that particular promotion. Employability conditions are there. Curiosity about new things is there. Desire to understand casual relationship. It might be sometimes social thinking. It might be sometimes social awakening. And likewise, many motivations are there as far as research problems are concerned. So this research can be divided in the following type. Bear with me for next 2-3 slides as these slides are very theoretical. So the research can be divided in following types. First is qualitative research. Qualitative versus quantitative research. So what is quantitative research? As the word itself, name itself indicates that it is based on the measurement of quantity or amount, right? So that is the phenomenon that can be expressed in terms of quantity. We can show it with respect to graphs, pie charts, with respect to bar graph, with respect to some percentage. That is called as quantity. And what is qualitative research? Qualitative research is concerned with qualitative phenomenons. Like, which are the qualitative phenomenons? That means that is involving the quality or kind. My opinion, that may have quality, right? Some surveys that may have quality. So quantitative versus qualitative research. Conceptual versus empirical. Conceptual means some abstract or ideas are there with respect to theory, right? This is done by the philosophers and thinkers to develop a new concept or to reinterpret the existing concept. Empirical means you and me are doing the empirical research. What it means actually, it means that it relies on the experiences or observations. Often this is based on some theory. That means we are going to do or we are doing the research that is data driven, database research, right? And that is coming up with some conclusions. Now, the conclusion, whatsoever we are writing, that could be verified by the observation or experimentation. We can call this as an experimental type of research also. So, for this research, it is very essential to have the facts in our hand and their sources. So, this is empirical research. Furthermore, there is descriptive versus analytical research. That means descriptive is based on surveys, fact findings, inquiries. These are the things that are involved in descriptive type of research. And the major purpose of descriptive research is description of state of affairs that exist at present. And analytical means totally related on the facts that is related to information theory that is available. We are supposed to analyze something and based on that, we are having some critical evaluation with respect to that material or matter. So that is analytical research. Many times we are doing this analytical research in engineering also. So applied versus fundamental research is the next category. Applied research means that is aiming at finding a solution for immediate problem. That problem society is facing or industry or business organization is facing. Right now, we are facing, our society, Punetis are facing the problem of Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS, right? That is due to some, I can say, virus that is there with respect to water. So if we are going to apply something, some algorithm to find out the virus that is there with respect to water, we can call it as a applied research. So meaning concerned with generalization or formation of a theory is called as a fundamental research or pure research. In addition with this, one more category is there, and that is called as other category, which is some other type of research which can be called as a historical or clinical research. Though we have enlisted many types of research here, but we are dealing with analytical type of research, applied type of research, and empirical type of research broadly as far as engineering domain is concerned. So whenever we are conducting or whenever we are having this research, we must have the research approaches. So these research approaches can be broadly divided again into two categories. First is quantitative approach and second is qualitative approach. So what is quantitative? As the name itself indicates that it is based on generation of numerical data. This data is called as statistical data. That means the data which is in terms of number. Number means it must have some solid and rigid methodology and structure, right? So many times we are doing the research which is under quantitative approach. So it's having the rigid and structured methodology. We are finding out the suitable objective. We are finding out the measurable phenomenon so that quantitative type of approach is conducted. This quantitative type of research is again of three types. First is called as inferential approach. That means the surveys related to research and its characteristics are used. That is the first category under quantitative. Then experimental approach. Experimental means in many type of research, that means biomedical signals, we are using the survey type of research. Experimental means empirical type of approach that manipulates the variables to observe the cause and effect relationship. And the third type related to quantitative approach is simulation approach. Everybody is familiar with this simulation. Without this simulation approach, we cannot go ahead. What we are creating usually, we are creating an artificial intelligence to analyze the system behavior. We are doing this with our many courses related to, I can say, signal processing, image processing, as well as many courses from computer engineering is related to simulation approach, as well as we can have our projects which are called as software project, which we are doing with respect to simulation approach earlier, and then we are trying to implement it at actual. Now, the research approach, second research approach, that is called as qualitative approach, right? So what is qualitative approach? Qualitative approach focuses on subjective assessment of attitudes, opinions, and behaviors. That is, of course, the data in this case is non-numerical. It is analyzed descriptively. So it relies on the researcher's insights and impression. What type of questions I'm going to set as far as assignment is concerned. As far as opinions are concerned, what type of opinions I'm giving, what type of behavior is observed, that truly depends on the researcher's insight. So this particular approach is also having the three type of techniques involved. First technique is focus group interviews. That means group discussions on a specific topic. Let's say that we are dealing with commerce domain and there is a discussion related to budget. So there should be a certain group, targeted group having similar characteristics. So focus on group interview as per as a particular discussion topic is concerned. So projective techniques, that is indirect questioning to uncover subconscious thoughts, that is projective techniques. And depth interviews means detailed interviews which are open-ended conversations. As far as these two approaches are concerned, this is the last technique that is taken in the consideration. So what is the key difference between these two? key difference is many times instead of going with qualitative approach, we are going ahead with quantitative approach. Our research is quantitative approach or quantitative research. As this is numerical based research, as it is structured and rigid research, the methodology itself is rigid. That's why we are going, many times we are going ahead with quantitative research. So the purpose is objective analysis. We are trying to set some objectives and we are trying to have the analysis of that objectives. Madam, is the window visible?
Yes, ma'am. Just a minute,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, it's visible.
So objectives we are setting, right? And we are trying to have the analysis of that objectives. If I'm trying to say that I'm having 4 objectives which are stated here, and I am trying to say that I have attained the objectives, that means all my objectives are fulfilled, satisfied, right? And if I'm writing it plainly that this particular objective is satisfied, but what is the evidence for that satisfaction? What is the evidence to prove that this particular objective is attained? Evidence is we are trying to have the publications in reputed journals. We are trying to have IPRs in reputed journals. We are trying to have some papers in reputed journals. We are trying to take part in discussion that is with respect to reputed platforms. So many things are there as far as attainment, that means analysis of this particular objectives are concerned. So both approaches that are stated here are valuable in research, and the choice thoroughly depends on research objective and nature of data that is required in order to carry out our research, right? So what is the significance of research? Significance means why it is important to have research. Very first thing is to get the PhD degree. Those who are doing master's degree or PhD degree, it's needed to write the thesis for them, right? In order to write the thesis and in order to do the publications, it's essential to do the research, right? To the professionals in research methodology, research may be a source of livelihood, right? So for philosophers and thinkers, research may be the outlets for new ideas and new insights. For the literary men and women, it is the deployment of new styles and creative work. To analysts and intellectual research may be mean the generalization of new theories. So these are the points that are taken in the consideration under importance of research or significance of research. Why to undertake the research? One more point must be added here. Nowadays, there is NIRF ranking in India, right? In order to have the good points, good ranking, it's much essential to have the research that is undertaken by that particular university or by that particular institute, right? So these are very basic things that are needed in order to undertake the research. So whenever we are carrying this research, there are 2 things, right? We have discussed about scientific approaches, we have discussed about the importance of research, but which are the things that are actually undertaken whenever we are going ahead with research project implementation or research implementation? There are 2 things. There is research method versus methodology, right? So what do you mean by method? Research method. Research method means all those methods which are used by the researchers during the course of studying his research problem are termed as research methods. Everybody is familiar. The systematic procedure that you are doing, researcher is doing in order to undertake the or in order to study the research problem is called as research method. So there are 3 groups actually in order to have research method. Very first group includes all those methods which are concerned with collection of data. So many times we are downloading the data from open source websites like Kaggle, or many more websites are there in order to download the data. It's not like I'm going to download the data which is directly available. Many times I'm trying to have our own, we are trying to have our own data sets also. And these data sets are captured by using a specific devices, by using specific cameras. It's not only camera, but we can use real-time sensors also. So these real-time sensors are trying to capture the data, and we can use these data sets that could be used for the methods that we are going to implement. So to gather the data set, to collect the data set, the things that we are going to use could be in the first group of method. So these methods will be used where the data is directly available. And if this data is not sufficient, we need to have some solution for it. So that is coming under the first group. For second group, it consists of those statistical techniques which are used for establishing the relationship between data and its unknown variables. And the third and very important consists of the technique that is used to evaluate the accuracy of result that we have obtained. So these are nothing but as the research methods. Now pay attention. There are many more type of research that we have seen. But if I'm going ahead with library research, that means method that I'm going to use is analysis of historical records. I'm going to record the notes. I'm going to record the content analysis. I'm going to have the tape and film listening. I'm going to have certain type of analysis. That is method. Analysis of document is method as far as library research is concerned. That means I'm going to have the statistical compilation and manipulation related to the abstract, related to the contents, etc. Whenever I'm going ahead with field research, I may have many parameters, many methods that are there with respect to field research. I may have focus interview, personal interview, group interview, telephonic survey, case studies, questionnaires, mass observation, participation, etc. And for all these, which are the techniques that are supposed to be observed? The techniques are observational or behavioral scales that we are going to put there, right? Sometimes we are going to put the scorecards also. We are going to have the recordings related to this, and these are the techniques related to the method. Third and very important thing is in the method, if I'm going to have the laboratory method, then we are supposed to have the small groups study of random behavior and its role analysis. That means we are going to use the audio, video or audio visual recording devices. So this is as far as methods are concerned. But what is methodology? Methodology means research methodology. Of course, I'm talking about the research methodology is a way to systematically solve the research problem. I can undertake any method in order to put the problem, right? But to solve that problem, I am going to use the methodology that is called as research methodology. And this is very systematic methodology that I'm going to adopt. That means it may be understood as a science of studying how research is done scientifically, right? So there are certain steps that are enlisted here as far as research methodology is concerned. What should be the first step in research methodology? Where we are trying to identify the research problem. Research problem could be from any domain. Only thing is that domain must be of our interest, must be of my interest being a researcher, right? So very first thing that is needed to do is try to find out the domain, and from that domain, based on the literature, try to take the rough problem, identify the research problem, right? Then selecting the appropriate research technique, try to have the analysis related to that problem. Understand the underlying assumptions, evaluate the relevance of the methods that are used in the literature, apply the data analysis and techniques appropriately. So these are the rough steps as far as research methodology is concerned. We'll see about more thing in depth whenever we are going ahead with actual proposed methodology in next few slides. So importance of research methodology, why it's needed to go ahead with research methodology. Research methodology helps the researcher to take the right techniques for their study. It ensures the validity and reliability of research results. It allows others to evaluate the research process and findings. Now everybody is familiar. Everybody has done the research, those who got the doctorate. So these are the process. This is the process that is shown here in this particular diagram. What we are doing at start, we are defining a research problem, right? Then we are doing the literature review. We are serving the literature. That means we are reviewing the concept and theories related to it. Review the previous research problem, that means findings. Try to have or formulate the hypothesis, right? That means steps that we are taking in order to solve that problem. Design it properly, have the sample design with you, collect the data, analyze the data, test the data, and put some hypothesis related to it. Interpret something. Try to have conclusion related to it, and try to have a report related to your research. Right? So that is as far as research process flow is concerned. But we may have the things like this also, right? In research methodology, what is the starting thing that is enlisted in earlier slide, previous slide? It is problem identification, and then literature survey. That means surveying the literature which is related to our problem within a span, within a window of, let's say, if I'm doing research, I must have window of 40 papers. I must have window of, let's say, 15 years. So I'm trying to identify the gaps based on literature survey, right? And based on that, I'm trying to have the hypothesis. Hypothesis means what are the lacunas that I have already identified. Based on that lacunas, I'm trying to put the proper defined problem statement, and I'm trying to put the problem statement in such a way that that could be achieved. That means I'm trying to finalize the steps so that I will get the aims that could be achieved with respect to research objectives. So I'm taking the support of research objective, and then I'm going ahead with proposed methodology. Proposed methodology is nothing but as the technique or techniques that we are going to use, right? So steps that we are going to use, and these steps must be different than that of existing technology, right? So once I'm going ahead with this proposed methodology thing, I have done the experimentation related to it. Then I'm coming with experimentation, result, and discussion. So once this result, discussion, and experimentation is done, we are having some thorough conclusions. So conclusion means I'm having my own findings related to whatsoever experimentation I did, right? So based on that, I'm going to have conclusion. And after conclusion, I'm trying to write something called as future scope. That means I can say limitations that are there with respect to my research. Pay attention. If I'm trying to have something like IPR supposed to be published related to this research, don't publish paper at that time, right? Try to have the copyright, try to have the patents, try to have design patents, right? And after that only publish the paper, right? And if you don't have the plans for IPR, directly publish the papers and then write the report related to it. This is general research methodology that I'm talking about. Now, pay attention. Very first thing that is stated in this methodology is research problem formation. How we are going to form the things. Very first thing that we are doing, that means the type of research problem is actually of two types. That is state of nature. That means understanding a phenomenon, right? And second is relationship based. That means we are trying to examine the variable and the connection between the variables, right? Then we are trying to select a research problem. That means we are identifying the area that is the area of our research, and we are refine the problem that is called as research problem. We are ensuring the feasibility before finalizing. Pay attention. We are trying to finalize the things that are under the scope of our things. Madam, is the slide visible?
Yes, madam. It's visible.
Yeah. So this is something which is called as problem statement. It is not problem statement actually. This is the title, right? This is the broad title that is undertaken as a research. What is the title? That is leveraging linkages of AIoT based emotion recognition with techno-social issues. See here, it's very important to put each and every word. I'm trying to have leveraging. How I'm going to show the leveraging, right? And that too related to techno and social issues, right? Techno social means something which is social and something which is technical. I must have some application that is trying to have technical and social issues and which is addressed by my particular research, right? So I'm trying to put the title where I'm going to put each and every word after thinking, right? First I'm having thought process and then I'm trying to put it, and that too which is related to emotions. right? So after this, whenever I'm trying to have survey, that is called as literature survey, I'm having some research gaps. Research gap means the things which are not addressed by the existing technique or existing research at national and international level. I'm trying to summarize it. This is called as research gap. Few research gaps I'm having related to whatsoever is the statement that is written by me, right? And then I'm coming up with proper problem statement. And that statement is to efficiently identify human emotions being experienced by individuals by implementing the proposed experimentation methods for visual facial recognition method and artificial neural network based methods on IoT platforms and compare the result for technosocial application. See, each and every word must be written carefully because at the end I'm trying to address each and every word. I'm trying to show that each and every word is implemented and satisfied. So this is what is called as problem statement. Now, as everybody is familiar with the steps that are required in order to have the problem formation. So what are the steps required? I should go ahead with, let's say the study. Very first thing that I'm going to have is I'm going to have the introduction, then literature survey, and then I'm going to have something which is written properly, carefully, so that it could be justified, satisfied at the end. So the problem statement or aim for the second case is to develop a model for anomalous activity detection using distributed deep learning for video surveillance. Each and every word is important here, right? I must go ahead with very recent technique that is called as distributed deep learning, and that too for video surveillance, which is actually social application related to anomalous activity, right? So with respect to this, we are supposed to put some objectives. Try to put the things so that we can achieve it, right? Don't put it like I cannot achieve something which is not attainable, which I cannot implement, right? So try to have the scope, try to identify the scope of the things, and then only put the problem statement and relative objectives, right? With respect to problem statement, once I am writing the objectives, my duty is to attain that particular objectives. Attain means satisfy the objective, and that too in a time span, in a window which is purely defined by me. Me means researcher, right? So whenever we are trying to undertake the research project, it's my duty to define the objective, and within certain span I must attain that particular objective, and that too with respect to the evidence that could be published at national and international level. So steps in problem formation: understand the problem, gain the clarity. Now it's very important to have the rephrase analytically. That means define it specifically, define it in operational terms, right? So everything that I'm going to put on the paper must be there carefully. Carefully write it. Rethink whenever you are writing problem statement and objective, because we cannot change it, right? So there are the, I can say, this could be actually RR committee is going to sanction all this, so we cannot change it again, right? So that's why write it carefully. Research and recognition committee is going to have the sanction letter related to this, right? So importance of discussions, that means consult the expert. Your colleagues many times are the expert, or academic guides, or industry person, or your friend, and then try to go finalize the statement. Business government researcher should engage the relevant agencies, whatsoever are the agencies related to them, they may engage with the relevant agencies. Then the next and very important step is try to have the literature review. Now this literature review is of two types: either it is conceptual or it is empirical. Conceptual means it is based on theories and frameworks, and empirical means it is based on past studies and data availability. Now after doing this, after identifying the gaps from literature survey, try to finalize the problem statement, right? Problem statement means something that you are going to implement in your research journey. So define it clearly. To separate relevant or irrelevant data could be taken into consideration. Ensure the objectivity and validity of the facts, right? And all these things must be having clarity. That means significance of clarity means guide appropriate research method must be there, leads to valid and meaningful result, right? It should not be something which is fabricated. It must be something scientifically driven. Some findings must be there which are having scientific base, right? So these are the things whenever I'm going ahead with literature, whenever I'm going ahead with the thing that is called as problem formation. Now pay attention. Now the problem is roughly formulated, right? Or it may be defined properly, but before that we did the literature survey, right? What is literature survey? Literature survey is the brief summary of the literature that is there in existence. In other words, it is state of the art which is there at national and international level, right? So extensive literature survey is taken into consideration. So what do you mean by extensive? Extensive means I'm going to have the literature survey like this. That means which paper I'm going to use, which are the authors, which methodologies used, what type of data sets I'm going to use, what are the experimental results, and what are the limitations. So all these are the recent papers that we have surveyed, right? I must have at least one paper that is called as recent paper, and one paper that must be old paper. So with respect to 30-40 papers, I am having literature survey. So after that, after having this literature survey, based on the limitations that I have identified from the literature, from the papers, research paper, I'm going to put the research gap. That means why it is needed to have the more research in the same domain, right? And based on that, I'm trying to write the problem statement. Now pay attention. These are the things that are related to literature survey. Now, I'm going to demonstrate something, and might be IT computer staff is already familiar with this fact, and this is research connection. So many of us are using the tool that is called as Research Rabbit, or that is connected papers also, right? So what is this Research Rabbit tool? Actually, this is very fantastic tool that is called as AI tool, right? So what is needed to do in order to have the implementation of this tool? It is needed to have the Research Rabbit website to be used, or website that we are going to browse, right? So with respect to Research Rabbit, users need to create free account on their website by using https researchrabbitapp.com. This account provides the access to the tools and features and functionality. We can add the paper, we can see the details of the paper, we can find the similar paper, we can have the visualization with respect to connections, right? We can see or explore the similar work. We can see the assessing abstracts by selecting the abstract options. We can see the similar papers that are enlisted. We can have the connection graphs. We can have building our own connection with respect to it. We can have multiple connections with respect to Research Rabbit. And this is the actual website with respect to which we can go ahead with Research Rabbit. Madam, is the screen visible? Research Rabbit screen visible? Dr.
Yes,
Pawar?
it's visible, ma'am.
Okay. So permit me for 2 to 3 minutes so that I can demonstrate this particular thing. I'm using researchrabbitapp.com, right? So we can join this. We can sign up this by using our Gmail, right? We can use our Gmail, and by using that, we can land on this particular platform. At the left-hand side, we are having 3 categories. It's new collection, it's new category, and connect to Zotero, right? So I'm clicking on new category. I'm trying to have new category. Let's say my new category is ATAL FDP. Let's say the category is BVCOEW ATAL FDP. This is my category that I'm going to have. So once I am finalizing the name, that is called as BVCOEW ATAL, right? This is one of the category that I have selected. So BVCOEW is the category which I am having with respect to this. Now, under this category, BVCOEW underscore FDP is the category. See here, I can have the collection as a tab. So I may have the collection. Let's say it is research paper. So research paper is the collection. Pay attention. Now I'm going ahead with the things that is called as research paper. As you can see at my left hand side, it's research paper, right? So under BVCOEW underscore FDP, this is free of cost. This is free app. In that, I can add the paper, right? Which paper I can add? Let's say that I'm going to add the paper related to retinal fundus images diseases, right? So I'm going to add this word and then I'm trying to have the paper related to it. You can see the paper, right? Which I'm getting here out of this, and this paper I'm going to add in the collection. First paper I have added. I may add second paper by seeing the paper which is of 2023. I may add the next paper. I may add the next paper. I can remove the paper also. Added paper could be also removed. This is glaucoma detection. This paper I can add. Some other paper I can add. So I have added some papers here, and let's say that these are 4, 5 papers, 10 papers I can add here, and these papers are now enlisted, right? So as you can see, under research category, I can see the paper, right? Now pay attention. I'm dealing with very first paper, right? And this paper is written by Govindan, right? So this is very first paper with respect to which I can see the abstract, right? So I can see the abstract related to this. So abstract could also be available whenever I'm going ahead with this particular paper, right? Everything that I can filter out here. I can see abstract, I can see comment, I can filter out everything which is related to this particular paper, second paper, third paper, etc. Right? Now, whenever I'm trying to see this paper, that is the selected paper, I may go ahead with the term that is called as similar papers, right? Now, if I'm going ahead with the similar paper, let's say I'm going ahead with the similar paper, or I may add some other connection. So I may go ahead with the thing that is called as similar paper. So I am getting the paper, pay attention, that are having similar nature, right? So all these things are available at tip of finger. You can see here at my right hand side, you can see something that is generated, and this is called as connection graph, right? So all those nodes which are, let's say that I am having this particular thing, that means this particular connection for which I have taken the first paper. For first paper, I am having this many connections available, right? So all the nodes that are enlisted by blue color are the papers that are not considered by me, that are not added by me in my collection, right? So whenever I'm trying to write some research paper, or I'm trying to have some research survey, I'm trying to add some papers which are there shown by green color, right? So added papers are by green color, and the papers which I haven't added are with respect to blue color. It's not like I can see the network. I can see this network. So this network is, let's say that this is zoom out network, or I may fit this network, right? So this is not only related to network. Network means I can see this author-wise. I can see this by relevance. That means with respect to citations also I can see the paper. As at the left hand side, you can see the paper that are with great citation. You can see the citations. Highest citations are 11,352, and this is chronological order. It's not like citations. I can see the relevance also. I can see the name of first author, second author, that means last author, or 4 or 5 parameters are there. So this is as far as all these papers are concerned. You can see here, these papers are, if I'm trying to fit this, then you can see that many papers are having connections. Connections means citation. So this Zedan paper is having 2 citations. So from this, I can say that the paper, that is this Foos paper in 2008 is 2018 is having 5 citations. And likewise, I can go ahead with the paper which is having maximum citation. There might be something why this particular paper is taken as a paper for the consideration, right? So it's not only this particular thing, but I can go ahead with timelines also. In chronological order, I can see the papers. That means I have taken the paper in the consideration, which are from 1988 to 2023, right? It's not only like that, but I can download this graph, right? So I may download this graph and I can see this graph. That means which is the paper that is having maximum connection and that is not considered by me. I can see the papers which are listed in or which are listed with respect to green colors, and I can see the papers that are listed by blue colors, which are the papers which are not considered by me whenever I'm going ahead with this type of research. So you can download this, you can share this with respect to whatever I can say with your colleagues, with your friends, right? So this is similar work. In the same manner, I may have all references also. I can download the graph, I can have the references. So Zedan is the paper that is having much citation. Many citations are there by Zedan, right? So I am going to undertake this particular paper in my consideration, right? Because it is having too many citations, right? So this is the reference. So all citation may also be taken in the consideration. They may suggest us regarding the authors also, and pay attention. If you are listing all these things, that means I have listed, let's say 4 authors or 10 authors, they are supposed to give me the file, and that is in terms of CSV, the file is supposed to be downloaded, and I can see this file, which is called as this particular file, which is in researchrabbit.xl form. That means I can get my bibliography that is ready-made available, where I can find the title, where I can find the abstract, where I can find the authors, where I can find the journal name, where I can find the year, right? The job, which was earlier of 6 months, might be of, let's say, 15 days, not more than 15 days if I'm considering all apps. And Research Rabbit is very powerful app, right? So you can undertake the research review paper. You can take the research review paper. You can use Research Rabbit app and you can go ahead. One and very important thing that I want to say you or share with you, that the graphs that are crafted by, that are made by these AI tools are not considered for similarity patch or similarity work, that is called as plagiarism, right? Why? Because only thing that we must do whenever we are taking the cognizance of all this graph is mention from where we have taken this particular graph, right? We can build graph and we can float or share that graph with respect to literature review. Now, literature review is not the major thing that should be taken in the consideration. It is the task of 15 days. If I want to elaboratively go ahead with, let's say 14 to 15, 60, 70 papers that are supposed to be taken in the consideration. So bibliographic survey I can do by using this AI app that is called as researchrabbitapp.com, right? Go ahead with it. Go ahead with every feature that is enlisted here in this particular platform. Like this, there is one more app and that is called as Connected Papers, right? Pay attention. Research Rabbit is the app which we can use, I can say for free of cost, and that is unlimited. I can build unlimited graph with respect to it, right? So it's not the thing whenever I'm going ahead with Connected. Many apps are there. I have taken cognizance of only 2 apps, right? So Connected Paper is the app with respect to which I can have the graph of only 5 graphs per month, right? Pro versions are available. It's not having very high cost, but I can say that it's having some significant cost, right? Whenever I'm going ahead with Connected Paper. In Connected Paper, similar things are there. I can sign up or I can use my Google account in order to have this www.connectedpapers.com app, right? And I am going ahead with the same terminology, same keywords that I am referring, which is the same word, that is retinal diseases. So I'm trying to have the things related to that. I can get the connection. Pay attention. Sheetal madam, is the screen visible?
Yes, madam, it is visible.
Okay. So pay attention. The I can say the concentrated notes that you are seeing are the notes, that means are the papers that are recent papers, right? And the faint notes, that means the notes that are having comparatively lesser intensity. These notes are the older papers, or I can say the previous papers. So with respect to this also, you can generate the graph. You can have the derivative work with respect to it. You can download this work. See here the way, systematic way with reference to which the things are constructed, right? So you can have the list, you can have the filters related to it. You are having the PDFs available. You are having the open access available. You are having many times the codes available. And one and very important thing is you can download the things. You can share the things. I can download this graph and I can see this graph further, but it's coming with BIB file, right? So I'm supposed to open it with respect to BIB. So these are the things that are concerned. I can see the prior work also. See the prior work related to fundus images. See the derivative works related to fundus images. I can directly download this work, right? Which was not there earlier. We used to have the study minimum for 6 to 8 months so that we can complete our literature surveys in earlier days. Now the things are made easy, right? So now it's our responsibility to have proper and reputed publications, as many AI tools are there to support us, to help us as far as paper publications are concerned. Now, going ahead. Now, pay attention. So, these are the steps as far as the literature survey is concerned. Now, moving ahead. Hypothesis. Hypothesis means why it is essential to go ahead with hypothesis. Hypothesis means it's the discussion with experts or your colleagues so that we can finalize the problem statement, so that we can put each and every word carefully, right? So it's the origin and objective in seeking its solution. It consists of examination of data and records, if available, concern the problem for possible trends, right? That means we are supposed to concern to the expert or our colleague who is doing the research or who is having expertise in that particular domain. A review of similar studies in the area or the studies or similar problems. And we are supposed to explore the personal investigation, which involves the original field interviews on a limited scale with interested parties and individual, with a view to secure greater insight into a practical aspect of the problem, right? So these are the things whenever we are going ahead with hypothesis. Hypothesis means actual solution that we are looking for, and we are trying to find out the solution by taking the help of our colleagues and experts, right? So whenever we are going ahead with the research objective, we can have two type of objective. Everybody is familiar with this two type of objective. First might be primary objective. Primary objective is the significant objective, the main objective that we are considering, right? And secondary objective means the objective that we are considering so that primary objective must be attained, must be satisfied, right? So this is nothing but as the objective slide. Now, proposed methodology. Pay attention. This is this is also very important things. That means which are the actual things that are taken in the consideration whenever I am going ahead with research methodology. So now we have seen about how to identify the problem. We have also seen about the literature survey, how to do the literature survey, which is AI-based tools we are using, right? We have also selected an appropriate method so that research technique so that we can go ahead with proper systematic methodology implementation, right? We are also having some pre-assumptions with us. We are also having some relevance methods that are with us. Now, we are trying to have the analysis related to the techniques or methods that are there with respect to us. right? So choose the right technique, choose the right study, right? And then ensure the validity and reliability of the research results. This is very essential. Results must be validated properly, right? So if I'm going to fabricate it, fabricate means if I want to have, let's say 99% accuracy. So by using some AI tools, by using something, if I'm going to fabricate it, it's of no use, right? My system may not be the authenticate system. So I'm supposed to ensure the validity of the system and reliability of the research results, right? So allow the others to evaluate the research process and findings. What it means actually, it means that I have created my own data set, and if that is kept up to me, what is use of that? It's of no use. So what should I do? I must throw it somewhere publicly. I must publish it somewhere so that other must use it, right? That is one advantage. And what is the second advantage? If other people, if other researchers are using that particular data set or particular algorithm which is patented, or something, let's say, which is there published by me, then some new techniques with respect to which this particular implementation would be done, the results will be automatically available, right? So allow the others to evaluate the research process and findings. That could be with respect to your methodology, that could be with respect to your data set, right? Try to have your own data set if possible. Try to publish it so that somebody might work on your data set and ready-made things could be available with respect to your data set, so that at the end we can compare and then try to write the conclusion, right? So at the end, our research must have some application. Without application, we cannot say that the engineering research at least must have some application. So many applications are there as far as the this particular evaluation is concerned. Just like an architect which justifies the design decision, a researcher must justify the methodological choices. Researcher decision must be clear, logical, and open to evaluation by others, right? This is very important thing, right? Our logical decisions, our logical findings must be available with respect to others. We are having this opportunity as we are having very great depository by our AICT and its research Shodhganga, right? Key consideration here are why the research is undertaken, how the problem is defined, why a certain hypothesis is formulated, what data is collected and analyzed, why specific techniques are used, and the conclusion is research methodology is essential for ensuring that the research is systematic, logical, and valid. It is not only involves method, but also reasoning behind method selection. So whenever we are going ahead with some application, we may have, as I belongs to pattern recognition, so I have enlisted some key areas, that is from machine learning. I haven't taken it from, let's say, deep learning or
You're not audible, ma'am. Are you there, ma'am?
Ma'am's voice is not coming. Hello, hello, Vijaya
I
ma'am,
think
are you there?
I think she
Yeah,
left the
madam is
meeting.
reconnecting once again.
Okay, okay.
Participants, please wait. Ma'am will rejoin the meeting shortly. Ma'am, are you there in this meeting?
Ma'am,
Participants, please wait. Ma'am will rejoin the meeting.
Hello. Sonali Kadam, madam?
Yes, ma'am,
Ma'am,
you are
Am I
audible.
you're audible.
Yeah, sorry for the interrupt. There
It's
is
okay,
power
ma'am.
failure at my end. Okay, so we'll go ahead with the next thing. Is the screen visible?
Yeah, it will, ma'am.
Okay.
Screen is not visible.
Okay. Madam, is
Yes,
it
ma'am, it
visible
is
now?
visible now.
Okay,
Yes, it is visible.
within next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll wrap up. So my next and very important thing is related to paper publications, right? So very first question in your mind might be why to publish the paper, right? So very first thing is to have the recognition, right? Globally, we want to have a recognition as a researcher. If somebody is typing your name with respect to Google, right? There must be some prominent papers available against your name. So recognition is the first thing. Second is career growth, right? I want to have career growth, as many of us are experiencing that. In order to become professor, there is some eligibility condition as far as research papers are concerned. For assistant professor, for associate professor, everywhere papers are needed. I want to have a development in a particular subject, right? And then promote and marketing the things that are there available with respect to us, right? So publish or perish, it describes the pressure to publish the research or academic work in order to succeed in academic research career. There might be some certain disadvantage. Many of us are actually saying like that there is academic load, so many personal roles are also there in addition with our professional load. So it's become very difficult sometimes to have the balance of all this. That is disadvantage. So administrator motivates us means the researchers to have or to achieve the career goals that is there by publishing the paper. Publish or perish is linked to scientific misconduct or at least questionable ethics. That means if somebody is trying to tell me that your publication must be, let's say, 15 to 16 in SCI, right? So it may possible that this is supposed to have some scientific misconduct also sometime, as we are seeing nowadays. There are many papers from Pune itself who are getting retract, and to your surprise, every year this quantity is more than 100. If you are visiting the websites related to publication, you can see many names to whom or these are our sometimes friends also to whom with whom we are familiar, right? But where to publish the paper? We can publish the paper at research journals. We can have research reviews. We can have short communications. We can have conference papers, posters, theses, books, book chapters, annual reports, white papers are usually published by certain organization or governments. Newsletters, project proposals and report, websites, blog, discussion group. Nowadays, many things are there under this contents, right? So where to publish? These are the things, and which are the platforms with respect to which we can publish this thing. Everybody is nowadays familiar with these platforms, and the name of platforms are, if I'm going ahead with conference, it is IEEE Explorer, Springer, Elsevier, Scopus, SCI indexing, PubMed, EBSCO, many things are there, right? As far as these platforms are concerned. How to publish it? Publish means researcher with, let's say, some interest in the field of researchers are trying to write the paper, right? Many things are there which are taken in the consideration as far as specific field of research is concerned, right? So what should be taken in the consideration? We are taking the consideration of, let's say I'm having proper arrangement of text and figures and table available with me. I may have style with respect to it. I may switch in between formal and informal style. I may have appendices available with me. I may have long-term vision related to that. I may have plagiarism report with respect to it. I may have some information, right? So informal things which cannot be acceptable, right? So in general, everybody is familiar. This is very basic slide. That is what should be the structure of paper. Now pay attention. I'll stay here for 2 minutes and then we'll proceed with the rest of the contents. So it is I should start with, I have finalized the problem statement. Now I am familiar with problem statement. So I'm going ahead with introduction. Write the introduction, and introduction should be of 25% maximum, right? Start with introduction. And then after introduction, go ahead with literature survey. Do the literature survey. Try to identify the literature gaps called as research gaps. Put some aim. Put the problem statement not in problem statement form, but in sentence form. That means what is the actual thing that you are going to implement, right? Then that is nothing but as the literature survey part, and then try to write the body means methodology that you are adopting. Experimentation, result, discussion, and then conclusion, and then write the references. Never try to have the title first, right? Title of the paper should not be written first, right? So before finalizing the title, that means I have written introduction, then I have done the literature survey. I am having some problem statement now available with me. Some objectives are written in the sentence form. Methodology is written, certain diagrams are done. Then experimentation setup is there with me. I have drawn some conclusion and everything. That means result and conclusion is there with me, and future scope is also there. References are also written by using some standard styles, right? Now I'm trying to write the abstract. After doing this, at the end, write the abstract. Don't start with abstract, right? Abstract is not the introduction, right? What should be written in the abstract? First sentence must be global scenario related to your particular problem statement. Next must be concise view, actual implementation that is done by you. And at the end, write something that you have achieved with respect to, let's say, some numerals, some numbers, right? So conclusion part, whatsoever you are writing should be the end lines as far as abstract is concerned. And that abstract must be ended by some keywords. There must be 5-6 keywords, and then this abstract must be of 200 to 300 words. And then try to finalize the title. Title must be at the end. Finalize the title at the end, and it should not be in question form. It should not start with what, why, or how, right? So abstract. Abstract means the major conclusions and methodology that we have implemented. Introduction. Introduction means what is the global scenario, national scenario, what are the investigations that we did with respect to that, and then it should be I can say literature survey, which must be taken in the consideration. That means materials and methods, and then whatsoever is the systematic flow technology that we are using, that must be ended up with some experimentation and result, and then further with discussion, and performance parameters must be there. That means performance analysis will be there. This must be the structure of your research paper, right? So if I see the paper after finalization, it must look like title. Title must be eye-catchy, right? Once our reviewer is looking for that title, it should not be something fishy that is done by the researcher. Then abstract. Abstract must be written in concise manner, and it must give the cognizance of the, I can say, research work that we have done or implemented in the proposed methodology. Keywords must be written. Body of the technical paper must consider why this study is taken in the consideration. It must be with introduction, literature survey, that is review, significance of the study, objective, that means for what purpose you are doing this, then proposed methodology, result, analysis and interpretation, and then discussion and conclusion. Very important part is we must acknowledge this, right? So acknowledgement means some our colleagues are helping us, supporting us, our organization is supporting us, management is supporting us, some let's say companies or government agencies are supporting us. Try to have the courtesy in terms of acknowledgement, references and appendices. These are the things that are taken in the consideration. But see here, whenever I'm going ahead with the paper, I must address 4 questions. Why this study is needed to be done? How I'm going to do, right? What I'm going to find, and what are the advancements, how your study will advance the particular field. These things must be taken in the consideration. So rigorous literature review is needed whenever I'm trying to have the technical paper. Summarize this literature review properly and go ahead with proper paper, right? So many times what is happening, title will not be suitable. Within a day, paper will be back. Abstract is written just like an introduction. Methodologies are not elaborative. Figures are not clear. The figures are not drawn by the researchers. The many times the equations are not written by the researchers, right? From somewhere they're just copying it in terms of image, right? So the grammatical mistakes are observed many times. Literature review section must be more elaborative. The claims must be supported by some mathematical model or set of equation or simulations. These are the weaknesses why the paper is getting rejected, right? And what are the strengths? Strength means if I have elaborated my paper clearly, right? So that should be considered as strength. Then discussion section must be well arranged. Then literature survey must be done broadly, right? And result is aligned in such a manner that this is going to give me the mathematical model or simulation model, right? So I'm writing my manuscript, right? So I'm having few interruptions also sometimes. So I'm sitting minimum for 2 to 3 hours daily and I'm completing my paper. I'm having now outline which is stated above ready with me, right? So I'm setting some goal in terms of time so that my sections must be finished, and then I'm going ahead with drafting of the or sending the paper, right? So as per as the papers are concerned, it is divided into two formats. Within 5 minutes, I'll conclude. Organizers, please permit me to have the delivery for next 5 minutes. So first is I am read, that is introduction, methods, results, and discussion. See here, it is thoroughly, it is rigorously seen that whether all the things are there available in your paper. That as far as I am already format is concerned. And second format is called as OCAR structure. OCAR means O is nothing but as it frames an interesting question, right? C means it presents a research plan and results, developing the action. Opening, challenge, action, and resolution. A is important conclusions that we are having or drawing, right? And R is nothing but as resolution that we are doing. So the purpose of writing a scientific paper is to communicate the new scientific findings that are done by us, by researchers, and that findings must be very simple, very clear, communicate in well order, right? In proper English, so that there should not be revisions with respect to this. So 25%, maximum 25% part of the paper must be introduction. Maximum, I'm telling you, avoid the critical sentences. Keep in mind the potential of the, I can say, domain, potential of the field that particular problem is having. Do literature survey properly, cite the papers from reputed platforms like Elsevier, Springer, IEEE, ACM, etc. Make proper communication and comparison related to the paper, and then summarize the paper. This is the way how we can go ahead with literature survey. It can be paraphrased, that means in terms of paragraph, or it can be in terms of even tabular manner. Now, the next is we can do this summary of the literature review, and we can go ahead with the gaps in that particular literature. Now, once this is finalized, I'm going ahead with actual methodology, where I'm mentioning that at the end of literature survey, I'm mentioning why I have undertaken this particular research, right? And then I'm going ahead with method section, that is methodology. Then discussion. In first paragraph, try to have the hypothesis related to it, that is evidences, pros and cons, strengths, findings, etc. Right? So result section must be there, arranged properly. It must be with proper figures. Summarize everything in such a manner that it must be ended up with some conclusion, having some important points. Right? Avoid this thing. So you should include what is important. You must have some keywords for indexing. It should have conciseness. Avoid questions, describing methodology and abbreviations, right? Your title should not be the concise summary of what's most important. The title must be eye-catchy title. design and development of something. That means, let's say that deep learning based implementation of, let's say, some technology. So deep learning based fundus image classification, detection and classification. That should be the plain statement that we are supposed to put, and that should be eye catchy, right? Abstract must have the written properly. It must carry good impression. First impression is the, it must be good impression. Introduce the topic well, try to communicate the problem properly, put the aim proper, put the keywords proper, put the conclusion properly, right? Use the appropriate graphs and tables. I'm having some tools with me, but I'm running out of time. That's why I cannot show it to you. So all these are the graphs which we can actually show in order to, or these are the evidences how we can show our things or results appropriately in terms of accuracy, specificity, selectivity, etc. We may use the performance analysis for this. We may put the appendices or appendix in proper way, right? That we are using. And we must write the references properly, acknowledge the agencies, friends, from whomever you are taking the help or support. Bibliography must be written in proper format. Sometimes I may engage the things related to Mendeley in our college, right? So prescribe the bibliography properly. Bibliography must be written in proper way. Otherwise, many times, 99%, if it is not written in a proper way, the paper will be back immediately. Do's and don'ts for the publication. Proofread the paper again and again. Avoid the spelling mistake. Avoid typos, etc. Right? Use any referencing style of your interest or whatsoever is mentioned by that particular platform, right? It might be Chicago style, IEEE style, or APA style. Try to use the reference management tools like Mendeley, EndNotes, Zotero, reference works, etc. Use the AI tools in order to correct the grammar. Try to have the conflict of interest. Try to have plagiarism check. Data fabrications must be avoided. Author's attribution and contribution must be shown. Duplications must be avoided. Multiple submissions must be avoided. I cannot submit one paper, let's say, to Taylor and Francis. It is immediately returning the paper stating that for the same platform, you have submitted the things twicely, though the journals names are different, right? So these are the type of research. This is the cycle with which we can go. Try to find out good journal. It might be UGC Care journal, but see here, UGC Care 2, which is Scopus journal. You can verify it whether really it is in the Scopus indexing or Web of Science indexing or in SCI indexing, and then only go ahead with it. Before submission of everything, ensure that the journal is really available there. In abstract, it should not be lengthy. So try to have everything related to abstract also. You can send review paper, you can send proper poster paper, you can send the journal paper or conference paper to particular, I can say, platform. These are the references that I have used. This presentation that I have been prepared using the different resources to help the learners to understand the topic for academic and research use. The presenters acknowledges and thanks to the various content creators and owners, including Springer Nature, whose contents are used in this presentation. Thank you very much for your patience listening, and sorry for the interrupt that is caused for 5 minutes in between due to power failure. Thank you, organizers.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful
Thank you.
session. Now I declare that the session is open to all participants for question answer. Participants, please unmute yourself and you can now ask the questions.
Participants, if you want to ask question, you can raise your hand. I will give you authority to on the mic. Participant, you can raise your hand if you want to ask question.
Anjali, madam, shall we proceed if there is no question with the next session? Anybody is having any question?
Uh, yeah, Vinaya Kulkarni has question. You can unmute yourself, ma'am. Vinaya, ma'am, you can unmute.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, madam, you are audible.
Ma'am, I have a question. You said that we can write any type of paper to be published. So, if a
Yes.
paper is to be published in Scopus indexing, or if to have Scopus indexing, so how to write review paper or literature review paper? What should be the contents so that it could get selected?
So you may have reviews related to methodology, right? Methodology means which methodologies are undertaken by the researchers at national and international level. Madam, that paper must be of 30 to 40 paper authors minimum, right? Try to have the comparison related to everything. What type of research or literature is undertaken for particular methodology implementation? Then what type of methodology is implemented? What are the results drawn? What are the findings? What are the limitations? What are the advantages? Everything must be written appropriately. And see here, I have gone through a paper which was of with respect to more than 100 authors, and that was 23 to 25 line paper or pages paper that is available with respect to my own domain, my own area. Like that, try to have the survey paper minimum of 30 to 50 authors. Try to write it scientifically, methodology wise, graph wise, table wise, compare everything, and then that may get published with respect to the reputed platforms like Scopus indexing.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Kashid, ma'am, the
Yes.
presentation was very thoughtful and knowledgeable. I must say, your research work is very splendid.
Thank you, madam.
Sheetal, ma'am, next speaker is on
Just a
my
minute.
laptop, so you can proceed with the next.
On behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth's College of Engineering for Women Pune, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Vijaya Pawar ma'am, for delivering such a thoughtful and enriching session. Your expertise and insights have been truly valuable to all of us, ma'am. I also thank all the participants for their active engagement throughout the session. Kindly, I now kindly request all the participants to join the next session and kindly fill up the feedback link which will be shared with you all on the WhatsApp group. Now, let me begin the next session.
No. Every participant must be in this link. The same link is for next session, and ma'am will start the introduction of the next. Thank you.
Yamini ma'am, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Okay. Now, let me begin with the next session today. It's my great pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker. Just a minute, ma'am. Is my slide visible, ma'am? Anjali, ma'am?
Yet not, but it will.
Okay.
Share your slide, ma'am.
Yeah. Is it visible now? Anjali, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible. You can carry on, ma'am.
Okay, let me start. It is my honor to introduce our esteemed speaker, Dr. Yamini J.D. Pawar, a dedicated environmental planner, researcher, and organizer with over 12 years of experience in the field. She worked with various organizations and now been successfully leading her own organization for the past 7 years, contributing significantly to environmental planning and watershed management. Dr. J.D. Pawar specializes in environmental sciences, watershed management, and digital technologies for sustainable development. Her academic journey includes a BSc in microbiology, MSc in environmental sciences, and PhD in environmental sciences. Her doctoral research focuses on developing a spatio-temporal integrated decision support system using digital technologies for watershed management in the Khadakwasla drainage area. She has extensive experience in environmental modeling software for air, water, and soil, helping to analyze and model different environmental parameters. Her research contributions are widely recognized with multiple journal publications on the topics such as stormwater management, drought planning, flood hazard mapping, and watershed modeling. Additionally, she has authored a book chapter on special techniques for rainwater harvesting and rural development. With her vast knowledge and commitment to sustainable environmental solutions, Dr. J.D. Pawar continues to make a meaningful impact in the field of environmental planning and watershed management. We are delighted to have with us today, ma'am. Now I request Dr. Yamini Pawar, ma'am, to kindly start the session. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so
Over
much,
to you,
Sheetal
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, ma'am.
Yeah. Sheetal ma'am, thank you so much for such a lovely introduction of mine. And I'm honored to that you all Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Engineering for Women invited me and gave me this opportunity to present my work on the GHG emission and the carbon footprinting in front of the entire uh, students of the Bharati Vidyapeeth College and from the other states also. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Pradeep Jadhav sir, principal of Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Engineering for Women. Hello. And Dr. Sonali Kadam madam and Dr. Anjali Kadam madam for giving me this opportunity to present. Yeah, that's fine. Present my work in front of you. So basically, as Sheetal madam told me that my today's topic is impact of GHG emission on carbon footprint of climate change. So the topic is basically not the new one that everyone is nowadays aware about the climate change. Everyone is about the sustainability, but no one is know how to do the things that are there in the social media, internet, TV, and everywhere. Even our movies nowadays contain this kind of a things like we have to save the world, we have to reduce the carbon footprint. But how actually we can do it? That's a big question for the layman and even for some technical persons. So today I am just brushing up the topic for everyone that what is the basic concept of having the GHG emission, how we can identify the GHG emission, and what is the impact identification methods for them, and what we can do to reduce the carbon emission. Okay, so I think we should start now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you
Yeah.
can start.
Yeah. Is my presentation visible to everyone?
Yes, it is visible, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, the basic agenda of the today's presentation is introduction to climate change, global warming, and the GHG climate emissions. What are the action plans to them? to reduce the GHG emission? What are the related bodies that are responsible to do this kind of action plan? Who decides the regulations? Who decides the acts, rules, and protocol for the reduction of GHG emissions to have the climate change under control? Then basics of GHG accounting and GHG protocol. Like how we can do the GHG accounting of a product, of a company, of a, say for example an industry or a factory. So we will see how the basics of GHG accounting is done as per the GHG protocol. What are the different principles of the GHG protocol? And what are the types of emission that we cover in identifying the total GHG emission of a small boundary area or a large boundary area? Small boundary area consists of maybe your home or a small factory or a small industry or even a small college or a small office even. However, when we consider the larger areas, we can even consider for the entire globe or like for the particular state. So what are the types of emission that we have to identify to get the overall emission scenario, so that we will cover as a scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions. And I'm going to present one case study, which is we have done at Vedanta Aluminium, Jharsuguda, Odisha. This is the largest aluminium factory in the India, which nowadays they are emitting a lot of carbon emission. And now, as per our emission target, like 2050, we will try to achieve the net zero, rather net zero emission by the India. So according to that, what every industry has to follow, that we have identified, and the every industry we go and see that how much emission exactly they are doing, what can be done to reduce their emissions. So based on that, the first case study I am presenting here to you is Vedanta Aluminium, that is in Odisha. So going forward, I'll start with what is the climate change. Everyone says that now the climate is changing, global warming is happening, temperature is rising. There are lots of effect of that. Because of this, the climate is global warming is happening. So basically, any climate of any particular area or any particular state is nothing but a different pattern of variation in temperature, wind, and precipitation as compared to the other meteorological parameters which are given in that particular area for the longer period of time. Say, when we say a longer period of time, that means it can be like 10 years, 100 years, or 500 years. So, whatever the data we get, according to that, we can identify what are the different patterns are there, and that too of variation patterns. Like suppose for example, in some areas the temperature can be less, temperature can be more, and that pattern may vary over the period of lifetime, like say for example 10, 15 years. So accordingly we identify what is climate of that particular area. Now what is climate change? When the pattern of any parameter of an environment which alters due to the different activities that are going on in a particular region, then we call it as a climate change. Most of the time, temperature is a factor that we identify that it can change or it can alter over the period of time due to changes in the landscape, changes in the land use of that particular area. Suppose, for example, any area is having only the architectural ground, agricultural ground, and then over the period of time, if that particular ground is developed into a, like for example a big cities or a small cities or a small area which can be developed into a small society, then that particular area changes the patterns of temperature in that small particular land of parcel. So therein the temperature is mostly changed, and we call it as a heat island effect. Because earlier when there was a greenery, or when there was a barren land, or when there was a probably a grass of grass is there, in that case the temperature might be a little lesser as compared to when that particular land is developed into a buildings or any construction area or any factory for that matter. So the temperature is definitely going to rise in that particular area, and that changes in the pattern of temperature, that we call it as a climate change. So now, as compared to a small area or a globe or a state, the earth is completely a dynamic in nature. The pattern of earth temperature, earth climate are also a very dynamic in nature, and that always continuously changes as per the natural process of earth that goes on changing. So there can be oceanic process of changes, there can be land use changes, there can be different types of use of land use that are changes, there can be because of the solar radiation, that the pattern of earth's climate is usually changed over the period of time, and that we call it as a change of climate. And over the period of time, the temperature is goes on increasing on the earth, and that's why most of the time we call it as a global warming. So warming of an entire globe is nothing but a global warming. So in last 50 years, if you see here in the image, that the temperature of different areas which are habitable areas are rising, and because of that there are problems of like rising in the ocean area, then the decreasing of a glaciers are happening, and that we call it as a impact of global warming in the particular area due to the changes of a climate. So now United Nations defines that the long-term shift in temperature and weather patterns are called as a climate change. So they can be a natural, but in since 1800 we are doing, like humans are doing different activities, we are having a development in many areas, we are having industries in many areas, we are having a habitable places which are not habitable earlier, we are changing them to the habitable places. And because of that, most of the parameters are driving the changes in climate. Most of the time the people are using the fossil fuels like coal, oil or gas, which produces the heat trapping gases that we are going to see what are the heat trapping gases, and that's why the global warming is happening. So I'm going to straight to a facts of global warming. So firstly, I'm covering the vanishing glaciers. This is a photo of Alaska Portage Glacier in 1914 and in 2004. So basically in 1914, the entire Portage Glacier was covered. If you see here, I can just show you using the pointer. So if you can see here that the Portage Glacier is entirely covering into a glacier patterns of a snow. And now till 2004, that entire glacier pattern is covered, or rather it is completely dissolved and it is into a formed a lake in the glacier. So earlier, whenever the viewpoint is supposed, from example here, the person can see an entire glacier here that is covered in snow. However, nowadays, when you want to see this glacier, you have to take a boat or any kind of a transport option, and you can just directly go to here and then you can actually observe the glacier. So over the period of time, that glacier has been dissolved, the snow has been dissolved, and that has formed a small lake in between. That is the impact of global warming. If you can see here that the visitor center earlier in 1911, it was here. Now you have to just ride on this water and you have to reach here till 2015. Now it has been still reduced so that you can actually watch a remains of glacier, because the glacier has been completely now almost melted here, and you cannot see the glacier as it is which is there in the 1914. So this is the image which dissipates that the how the glaciers are changing due to the global warming. So there are two types of glacier here. One is this Portage Glacier. This is the image of 2015, and this is Burns Glacier. This is still away from this particular area. However, these glaciers are still intact compared to this glacier, as there is a less kind of movements are happening towards this Burns Glacier. So this is a one part of global warming that we always see, that the glaciers are melting and that's why there is a difference in the temperature. This is another example that I am sharing to you is related to global warming. This is the Indonesia, and the earlier capital of Indonesia is Jakarta. Jakarta city is a city where a lots of population is growing since last decade, and that's why the Jakarta is very congested, very polluted, and being on a faulted plains, it's very prone to have earthquakes. And due to that, it's rapidly sinking into the sea, Java Sea, and it's also known as the fastest sinking city in the world, with over like over the third of the city, which may be under the water by 2050. So because of that, Indonesia needs to change their capital to somewhere else. This is the major impact of global warming that they are facing. That's not only because of that is consistent, that is polluted, or that is prone to earthquake. The another reason of sinking the city into the sea is that the rising in seawater level. Whenever glaciers melt in nearby areas or in nearby to the glacier populations or glacier areas, then that glacier directly converts into water and that rises the level of a seawater, and that is going to eats the nearest to the coastal cities or near to the coastal cities, and Jakarta is one of the that particular city that is getting affected because of the rising level of sea. So these are the greenhouse gases. Now, when we consider that the greenhouse gases are the major components of the environment and they are responsible to cause a global warming in the on the earth and all of them. So now, what are the different types of global warming gases that we consider that they are the global warming gases, and they are whenever they are present in the atmosphere through any process, like whenever it is natural process or anthropogenic process by any method, if they are present in the environment, then they absorb and emit radiation at a specific wavelength, and because of that, the Earth surface and the Earth temperature increases. So there are 7 major types of GHG gases that we consider when we calculate the GHG emission for any particular industry. So first is carbon monoxide, first and foremost, and it's very important gas, that is carbon dioxide, because any of the next GHG gas is considered with the reference to the carbon dioxide. Then methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, sulfur hexafluoride, and the nitrogen terfluoride. So these are the greenhouse gases. Whenever we say that we have the methane in a particular area, say for example, if you have a cattle dung or the areas of cattle, then there are larger chances that the methane will be there in larger amount. So whenever we have to calculate the methane, then we consider as if 1 is a carbon dioxide and 25 is methane, that is 25 of a carbon dioxide will be considered as a methane. 1. According to nitrous oxide is 300. So this is what the global warming are usually potent gases are calculated. Now, how actually they do a greenhouse effect whenever they are present in the atmosphere? So basically, all of these gases are definitely important for the life that is happening on the earth. But the concentration of a gases at that time and now, it's very different, because earlier those gases were very less in the amount, and that's why they are trying to absorb a very less energy, and most of the energy is reflected back into the atmosphere. Now the same greenhouse effect that helps that earth life is remain safe or not get heated too much by the sun or something like that, nowadays those gases concentration in the atmosphere is increasing, and because of that those gases are absorbing lots and lots of solar radiation and not reflecting back much of them outside the atmosphere, and because of that most of the heat that is absorbed by gases is remaining in the atmosphere, which is causing the increase in temperature of the earth atmosphere, and that we call that as global warming. So impact of global warming gases. So there are different impacts of global warming gases, and if you name the anything like any parameter, any process, any of the industry, any of the aspect of our life, then on any aspect, impact of greenhouse effect is there. So what are the possible climate change impacts are there is mostly a sea level rise that we have just saw. Precipitation may increase or may decrease because of the global warming, and temperature is also increasing. In some area you may find earlier it was a major precipitation, and because of global warming it has been reduced, or in some areas you may find that there are precipitation parameters which are not good, and due to global warming probably they are now receiving a much more precipitation than the earlier they are having it. So on health also, weather-related mortalities are there, like tsunamis are there. Then flood-prone areas used to get the flood because of the rising level of the sea or melting of glaciers. They are getting the flood areas. Infectious diseases are coming. Then air quality and the respiratory illness may happen because of changes in the air quality. As you all know that the air quality of the major cities in India like Pune, or metro cities in India, Pune, Mumbai and Delhi, that is due to the rising parameters of PM10, particulate matter 10 and particulate matter 2.5, which is released from the different activities, and the carbon dioxide, methane or other gases that are released due to the different processes and the transportation. They are making the air quality worse to have the humans to be there in the habitat. And that's why we have to take a major action against the same kind of a processes. And agricultural, crop yields and agricultural demands are the major impact that is happening because of global warming. So in some areas, crop yields are getting decreased, or the parameters of the crops that we are getting, that the quality of the crops is not that much that we are getting it earlier. Irrigation demands also change because of this particular thing. If suppose temperature rises, then the irrigation may have to be a frequent. If the irrigation or there are different types of precipitation patterns that may change your irrigation demands also. In case of forest, we have to see the composition of the forest is changing due to the global warming. Like geographic range of forest is getting decreased day by day, as not because of global warming, obviously, but because of the human habitat and the developments. But because of that, overall health of the forest and the productivity of the forest is getting decreased. Water resources is water supply is basically changing because of global warming, because we are probably getting less and less amount of rains. We are may getting the more amount of rains. In that case, the water supply will change. Water quality will also be getting changed, and the different types of like kind of a rain that we are getting in the different particular areas, that is changing as per the global warming. Hence, that is affecting the quality and the supply of that particular area water. Then coastal areas, as I just explained to you that the Jakarta is sinking into the Java Sea. Similarly, the erosion of a beaches, that if may or may not notice about it, but every and other sea erosion of beaches is happening even in India. That is happening due to the rising level of a sea. Additional cost is to protect the coastal communities, like the people who are living near to the coast, as and always, as in Jakarta, say for example, they may have to change their locations, they may have to change their businesses, or they may have to change their residential areas or something like that. So species and natural areas, because of this global warming, most of the species have lost their habitat, and they may have to change, or they may have to adapt with the changing kind of a global warming scenarios. So these are the impact of global warming gases or greenhouse gases in the different areas of the world. So if you can see that the how impacts is there on the physical system. So if you see the impacts on the physical system, you may see that the glaciers, wherever there are glaciers, those glaciers are melting and snow and ice is forming. In case of rivers also, there is an impact, like floods are there and droughts are there and something like that. Coastal areas also getting affected because of the global warming. Biological system is terrestrial ecosystem, wildlife or marine ecosystem. And human and in managed system, we can have a different kinds of a food production that may hamper because of global warming. Livelihoods of the health and other economics are also getting changed due to the changes in the global warming. So basically, we have to identify that what are the different impacts of global warming on a smaller area. We have to act on that particular smaller area to reduce those impact, and likewise we can get the overall impact on the global level. Okay, so this is the another example. As I told you that there is an impact of sea level rise. This is the another example on in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh also, the total population is affected because of this global warming. is around 17 million, which is 15% of the total population of Bangladesh. And here, if you can see the image, the Dhaka earlier was having a less area flooded because of the sea water. But as increase in the sea water, you can see the more and more areas which are getting flooded due to the global warming. So now this is obviously not a new concept to the government and the different state. We are doing this action plan and every other things to reduce the global warming impact on the environment. In 1972, when the first United Nations Conference on the Environment happened in the Stockholm, they identified that there is definitely such a problem that we need to identify and we need to do something about it, or we actually start identifying the problem. So after 1972, there was a 1992 Earth Summit which happened in Rio de Janeiro, and therein they identified, yeah, okay, so industrialization has started, and they agreed that we have to reduce the greenhouse gases emission, and we have to get it down to 1990 levels. So within couple of years of starting into the industrialization, they understood that yeah, industrialization is not good for the environment, or even if we want to do it, we have to reduce the emission and at least try to get it to the 1990 level. After that, in 1995, which is literally after the 3 meters, the conference of parties like COP has been formed, and they understand that there should be an annual negotiation, some decision making should happen, because most of the countries were not agreed that in 1992 summit, whatever the GHG emission reduction has been planned or decided, that is not possible by most of the countries, and they decide that we have to identify the parameters for each and every countries differently, because each and every other countries may have the different criteria to grow. Say, for example, China is emitting a large amount of GHGs in the environment. However, as compared to the China, most of the smaller countries like New Zealand are not emitting to that much level. That's because they are having a less industrial productions. So the same rule cannot be applied to two different countries, and therefore the conference of parties, decision making bodies identify that they have to probably make either the overall rules for the entire globe, or every country should decide their own targets and should try to achieve them. So in 1997, the final, and everyone knows now about this protocol, is Kyoto Protocol is occurred. And in that Kyoto Protocol, rich nations agrees to cut their emissions to 5.2%, which is below 1990 levels by 2012. So earlier, when they identified that in 1992, they will get that reduction to the 1990 level, which is only possible to rich nations, and they understood that by 1997. And they said that, okay, we will reduce and cut our emissions to 5.2%, and we will try to get it down till 1990 levels by the 2012. In 2007, the Bali Action Plan again came, and accordingly, they extend the protocol after the 2012. In 2009, there are lots of new climate treaty were there, lots of new protocols came, lots of new technologies came, but most of them are failed because of the large industrialized countries are pledging to give the poor nations like 100 billions per year from 2020 to help and adapt the climate change. That means then poorer countries, even though they want to reduce their carbon emission, they do not have that much of wealth or that much of money to reduce or to implement those particular strategies in the areas. Even in today's world, India doesn't have that much of capital that it can try and reduce the carbon emissions that are happening in major industries that I'll cover the next. In 2011, Durban, there was again a conference happened, and everyone says that the by 2015 we will try to cut the further emissions. In 2014, there was a conference in Limba, and all nations were invited there, and they everyone pledged that they will definitely cut their GHG emission, at least try to identify and try to make the rules to reduce the carbon emission in the area. after 2015, which is the Paris Convention or the Paris Climate Conference, the universal agrees, everyone agrees that we will have Earth temperature is rising by more than 2%, which is above pre-industrial level. And that has to be definitely either reduced to 1.5% or at least we should maintain it to the 2 degrees. So this is what the realization is. So major events are happening in 1992, 1997, that is Kyoto Protocol. 2016 is Paris Agreement, and 2018 is they are saying that everyone will allocate a $4 billion funds to fight the climate action or climate change over the next 5 years. So now this is what the actual carbon footprinting causing the global warming. So if you see that pre-industrial level, it is 0 degree. So whatever the emissions are there in the environment, they are not causing us any kind of a discomfort to every parameter of the environment. So it is considered as a zero level. Emissions are happening definitely, but they are getting absorbed through different types of processes by nature. Now we are here in March 21.16. Okay, so this is just about just below that what we are expecting in the Paris Agreement, that is 1.5. After Paris Agreement, upper limit was 2 degrees. Paris pledges, then they have understood that even after we are deciding to 1.5 degree, the Paris pledges were 2.7 degree. And current nation policies that we are following is getting the emission to 2.9 degrees. However, Paris pledges without the US is 3 degrees. So US is reducing most of their carbon. However, the other countries are trying to reduce that, but it's very difficult for them. As I said, that there is a different parameters, different hurdles are there. So it's very difficult for the poorer countries or the developing countries to reduce their carbon emissions along with the development they are doing. And any kind of absence of policies may go up to the 4.1 to 4.8 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is the same image that we are talking about. So we go all out. So when we can get the 1.5 degree pathway that we have to reduce each and every greenhouse emission of gases that is going into the environment, and we will try to reduce that, then we can maintain to 1.5 degree. 2 degree pathway is we have to make entire world concentrated efforts to reduce the carbon emissions. Here, if you make some pledges and targets, a national level, a global level, in that case, we probably try and see that if it can maintain to 2.4 degrees. As per the current policies, it's definitely difficult to have it to 2.5 degrees. It may be between the 2.7 to 3.1 degree. And if there are no climate change policies, as we have seen, if we do nothing, then it continually goes on rising. So this is the gigaton carbon dioxide or greenhouse gas emissions. And this is the basically this graph showing that we are timely emissions of gases. So by 2050, we are trying to at least reach to this path 1.5 degree or 2 degree maximum. And then by 2070, after at least India is having a target of 2070 to go over net zero carbon emissions. So whenever we say that the net zero carbon emission should be there, it's not like we will reduce the 100% carbon emission from the environment. This is something that whenever we say that there should be a carbon emission, we try and maintain the balance between the emission of a carbon and the absorption of a carbon. So there are different methodologies that absorbs the carbon emissions or the GHG emissions which are there in the environment. And that's why we can get that particular carbon emission reduction in the environment. So 10 key solution is first and very important. If you consider the entire globe also, that retire your coal plants. In most of the developed countries like Europe and other countries, they don't have the coal plants now. Coal plants are basically a plants which are used to generate an electricity for a particular kind of a production. So for electricity production, India is still very dependent on the coal plants. Even the case study that I am going to cover is also using the coal plant for the electricity generation, and that are causing the maximum amount of emissions in the environment or atmosphere. Secondly, invest in the clean energy and efficiency. So whenever we say that clean energy, it should not always be a solar or a wind power. There are large amount of technologies having that is there in the developed countries or even in India that can be used in particular kind of generation of electricity or energy or any kind of power generation, but efficiently we have to use them, and they are super money intensive, cost intensive, and it's very difficult whenever you have an existing system and you have to change that particular into different system. Third is profit and decarbonize building. Sorry, retrofit and decarbonize building. That means you have to try and reduce your own emission in your own house. Try to decarbonize a small house, a small society, or a small town, or a small city. So that will definitely impact. Decarbonize cement, steel, and plastics. So decarbonize means you have to reduce the use of these products. Whatever they are into the atmosphere, that will definitely remain there. We have to try and reduce the use of new generation of cement, new plastic, or new steel, or if you want to use it, you have to use alternatives for the less GHG emission productions. Then shift to electrical vehicles is another solution. Increase the public transport, biking and walking. Then decarbonize aviation and shipping. Aviation and shipping is another factor or another element that definitely increase the load of carbons or load of GHG gases in the atmosphere. Halt and deforestation, restore degraded lands, and reduce food losses, waste, and improve the agricultural practices. That means improve the different kinds of pesticide that we are using, improve the different kinds of practices that we are right now following, and that helps to reduce the agricultural GHG emissions. Eat more plants and less meats. Again, eat more plants will definitely have the emission impact, reduce emission impacts. Since when we are eating a less meat, in that case, there will be a less poultries or less any kind of animal raising structures are there that which are emitting much more carbon emissions in the environment. They will become less, and hence the overall impact of decarbonization will be more. So, okay, IPCC is nothing but a intergovernmental panel on climate change. This is the body of a 195 members, and then this decides and reviews and assess the different techniques and identify the socio-economic information of the different area. So they identify that what can be the different kind of technologies can be implemented, how they are implemented, and what are the best suitable parameters for the existing technology, and they produce in their the assessment cycle. So IPCC right now it's in sixth assessment cycle, which we all the sustainability professionals are using, that is called a sixth assessment report AR6 for identification of the GHG emissions for different kind of parameters. Now, any kind of a carbon footprint, whenever we say carbon footprint can be of anything, like any product, any kind of small area. So what exactly the carbon footprint? Carbon footprint, here I am taking an example of a small pad. Wherever the greenhouse gases, if you see, then in that case, the 130 kg carbon dioxide will be emitted by this particular tab during its lifetime from cradle to grave. We call it as a cradle to grave, like right from their basic material that is you required to use this or required to make this tab to its disintegration into the landfills. So mostly production causes a 66% of carbon emissions. After that, the customer use, I mean the electricity that will be used for the charging, the tab itself, the emissions will be there, internet usage will be there. So everything will consider into the customer usage, which is 10 with 23%. Then the transport is 9%. Whenever you discard any electronic devices, then the transport to the different parties, everything will be dismantled, the different material will be transported to a different kind of a recyclers. So that will again consider as a 9%, and the actual recycling process will cause as a 2% of emission. So this entire emissions is considered from the one tab from its cradle to grave life cycle analysis. So this is how we calculate that the greenhouse emission for a particular thing, how that it will happen and how we can reduce it. So now there are different government pressures is there. What are the basis of GST accounting? Basically, when you see that we have to do the GST accounting, what are the basics of that? First and foremost, are very important is the government pressure. So every government is pressurizing their team to have reduce their carbon emission and making legislation for reduction of carbon emission. Then there can be a supply chain pressure. Suppose if I am an employer, I am a company that wants to use and less carbon emitting, carbon intensive products, then definitely a production team will also see that what are the less carbon emission reduction process or carbon emission reduction products are available in the market, and whoever is emitting less during its production may get a chance to have a more kind of a customer. So supply chain pressure is also there. Investor pressure is also there. Carbon trading is also there, where you can trade your products by reduction of a carbon. Cost is also reduced. Now you have to manage the risk. Competitive advantage is also required, as though you are reducing your carbon emissions and you are putting some money into it, your product cost will get higher, and in that case you may have to see that whether you have that competitive advantage of your product or not. And lastly, it is customer pressure. So customer also see that the cost should be less, the product should be sustainable, product should be, even if you go and buy the fridge, then also you see that how many stars are there on the fridge. So those stars are assigned by identifying the each and every process, each and every material that is used in the product. Accordingly, we decide that particular stars on the fridge. So customer pressure is also important. Now GSG projects, how we identify is year 1 and year 2. So baseline emissions and projects emission are the two types of emission that we consider into the GSG, total GSG project emission. Whenever we start any project or any company, say for example, we first identify their baseline emission for ideally for 1 year. 1 year we identify every month, every day, and 24 hours. There are different types of emission parameters. What are the different patterns? What are the different processes that are emitting? And those particular baseline emission then identified, then the different decarbonization plan is prepared. And that decarbonization plan on the second year of that particular project, we try and implement that part into the industry. So on the second year, when we implement the decarbonization strategies, we identify that what are the baseline strategies. Say, for example, you are getting 100 tons of carbon dioxide from that particular industry for the baseline emission. And after implementing some strategies, if it is getting reduced to, say, for example, 75 or 80%, that means you are reducing your 20% of your carbon emissions. Carbon neutral. As I said earlier, that there are two different concepts. One is net zero carbon and another is carbon neutral. Carbon neutral is total emission will remain the same as you are emitting 100 tons and you are trying to reduce the 100 ton by compensating it by using a trees, by planting more trees, by using some sustainable technologies, by using some recycled materials or something like that. Net zero is something that where your emissions are getting towards the zero. So carbon footprinting strategies is nothing but first you have to define the boundaries. Boundaries of any area has to be defined. Then audit has to be done. Communicate the result to the stakeholder. You can also get the certificate for that particular reduction. Reduce the GHG emission. Again, you have to do the audit and then communicate the reduction to your maybe stakeholders or maybe your customers. Now, principles, there are some principles of GHG accounting. One is relevance. Relevance is something that GHG emission inventory uses a data, different kinds of method that has to be relevant. Even the assumptions made for the project has to be relevant. Completeness is nothing but we have to see and identify each and every process that is making an GHG emissions, so that the entire set of parameter or set of processes will be identified for that particular industry. Consistency is something that any method, any data, or any criteria that you are using, suppose for example, you are using the emissions from your stack for every 24 hours, that consistently it has to be checked for the entire year, that what are the emissions from the sky. Suppose in say case of like there may be anthropological factors that you may have to miss for some time of that particular emission identification or emission calculation or measurement, then you have to make some assumption that that has to be something meaningful and valid point should be there to identify and to manipulate that particular data for that particular period of time. So that is what the consistency means. Transparency is something that it should not happen that the government has been asked to reduce your carbon emissions, and that's why you are just claiming that you have reduced your carbon emission by earlier year showing the larger amount of carbon emission, then you can just reduce it to something. So there has to be some transparency in your process that has to be maintained, and that can be done by auditing. Accuracy is something which for every parameter, suppose if you are installing water meters or electricity meters, the accuracy of that particular instrument or the measurement is to be there. Conservativeness is suppose say for example for any procedure you don't have that particular amount of tangible outcomes are not there, then in that case you have to use some parameters which are vaguely or which are just by visible interpretation you have to do it. So in that case also you have to identify it very well. So these are the three types of emission that we calculate most of the time. One is scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3. Scope 1 emissions are nothing but stationary emissions. Stationary emission, that is, since I am taking this particular story or this particular case study, I am using the same thing everywhere. So for example, any kind of aluminium industry, bauxite to aluminium processing, any kind of coke, bake, lime, soda ash, or any process that is there in the site, the stationary combustion is something that is happening on a particular area in a particular standalone building. So that is stationary combustion. Process emission is, that means the process actually what emits the GHG emissions is process emission. Mobile consumption is nothing but a transportation emissions. That there can be transport of product, there can be transport of employees traveling through the to and fro, there can be transport of material. So that is mobile consumption. And fugitive emissions are also there, which are the usually fuel line emissions or carbon dioxide that is getting emitted into the different kind of ACs or units or any kinds of STP or something like that. So they are considered as fugitive emission. So this is entirely covered in the scope 1. In scope 2 emission, it's again a stationary consumption, but that should not be in your scope. So when you purchase electricity from someone, that are stationary emission, but that are not done by you, or that is to be done by someone else's. So that's why necessarily it's not your emission. So it can be considered into scope 2 emissions. Scope 3 emissions, there are different types of scope 3 emissions, which is basically a stationary consumption against process emissions are against, and fugitive emissions are also there, but they may be due to the business travel, employee commuting, or they may be because of any second party suppliers are doing that and you are using their products. So that is happening in scope 3 emissions. Now, this is something that how exactly a company identifies their emission. The everything has been given in the protocol ISO 146.4-1 GHG protocol that is usually used for the corporate things. Whenever the parent company, if suppose they are having company A, company B, company C, and company D, we have to define that what are my organizational boundary for the accounting of GHG emission. So it may happen that the organization boundary can be all four, but the operation boundaries can be only these two or only these three. So accordingly, I can decide that these are my identification of operational boundaries. Only that particular area will have the emission, and I want to track down only those emission, and I want to decarbonize only that particular area. So that facility, that authority is given by government to every company, that you have to decide what areas you want to decarbonize. So these are the different parameters are there, like 14,064, 14,064 2 and 14,067. So everyone is having a different kind of parameters, or everyone having a different kind of regulations. So we are ideally using this particular report, wherein GHG inventory and the report usually we see and we make the GSG statement in the first stage. After that, the quantify, monitor, report, and emission reduction, removal, or decarbonization methods were identified using this standard of ISO 14064 too. And in 40,067, we can see that what is the CFP report is, study report is identified, and the different kinds of parameters and completeness requirement or everything will be as per the GSG validation terms and verification. We do the verification of the existing report. Okay, so these are the emissions. Like stationary combustion can be used as stationary equipment like boiler, furnace, burners, turbines, heaters, or incinerator that are used. Mobile consumption, as I said, it may be automobiles, trucks, or buses that are used for the transportation. And process emission can be a process actually which is physical or chemical that is used in the industry, or catalytic emissions, or any kind of PFC emissions are there in the products. So that is considered a process emission. And the fugitive emission is the unintentional emissions. So it can be equipment leak from joints or seals or packets, or any fugitive emissions from the coal piles, which are just happening there and they are emitting some kind of a greenhouse gases. Then wastewater treatment, again the unintentional releases happen from that. Even the cooling towers is having the same kind of emission. Okay, so this is organization boundary. Mandatory is only scope 1 and scope 2 emission. You have to mandatorily calculate only these three. Scope 3 is optional. That's because this is definitely dependent on the other factors, on your vendors, then on your suppliers, then third party distribution. So that's why this is not compulsory to calculate the scope 3 emission. Only scope 1 and scope 2 you have to identify for your company. So these are the different methodologies. I have also given you the link. You can just go and check that what are the links and how the protocol is identified, what are the government guidance is there for the every kind of industry. This is the GSG protocol, or this is what we calculate as GSG emission using AD into EF. This is activity of any particular area and the emission factor used for that particular thing. Now, global warming potential. So usually we calculate what is the global warming potential of each gas as per the IPCC document. So IPCC has given carbon dioxide as a 1 global warming potential. As compared to carbon dioxide, methane is having 21 of a global warming potential. So in GSG reporting, every non-CO2 gas is usually converted into CO2 equivalent, and then the ultimate carbon emission, that is carbon emission, has been calculated. So, okay, I'm directly coming to selection and collection of the GST activity data, scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Emission data usually we identify from the electricity or energy suppliers, or there can be government officials, academic LCA softwares are there. Lots of softwares are there which uses and identify and simulate the data for the GHG emission. Reporting emissions is something that corporate inventories are there. Life cycle footprints are also identified, and the entire GHG project reports reduction emissions are increased. Removal of that particular decarbonization method had been identified using the entire GHG life cycle footprints. Now I'm directly coming to the case study, since I think it's 8:37. So this is the case study, which is the largest aluminium factory in the India as of now, and it is the carbon emission factory, carbon emission for the Vedanta GHG emission, which is located in the Jharsuguda. If you can see 1, 2, and 3, 4 different types of emitters are there, which are used for the emission of electricity production, basically smelting units. Okay. So objective obviously to identify what are the GHG emissions in that particular area, identify the different types of emission sources or any kind of underlying causes are there. Then what are the existing process, how we can change that particular process to decarbonize the area. And then obviously discussion with stakeholder, that because each and every carbon emission reduction or decarbonization process is a cost impactive process, and that's why we have to discuss with the stakeholder whether it can be accommodated in their budget or not. Goals is definitely to have the GHG inventory identify emission reduction sequestration strategies, then prepare carbon balance and carbon capture plans. Carbon capture plan is something, even if you are not trying to reduce the carbon by any kind of a method, or the process has to have that particular kind of a carbon emissions, then we have to see that carbon capture plans. Carbon capture is something that can absorb the carbon using landfill, using trees, landscape or something like that, so that we can ultimately reduce the carbon emissions and discuss and suggest the decarbonization methods. So now we identify first the different methodologies or different processes that may be carbon intensive in the industry. So there are like anode plant making process is there, potline is there, and the cast house is there. In anode plant, there are again sub processes are there, and we identify what exactly these processes does in the industry. There are two types of power generation plant. One is captive power generation plant, and the other is thermal power plant. So smelting process, we identify that there are large amount of emissions of carbon happening because of the chemical reaction of a liquid aluminium to the cathode. And in that case, oxygen reacts with anodic carbon and it forms the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. So larger emission of any in the aluminium industry is happening through the actual process of making your aluminium. Now this is power generation plants are there, because aluminium production is a very power intensive process, and that's why they require large amount of power to be generated. And there are two types of power generation, carbon CPP and TPP. So these are using the turbine or the coal power plants are there, and that's why the larger amount of emissions also again having the because of use of coals and the steam. Basically coals are used to heat the to prepare the steam. So power generation in TPP is also there, and if you can see that there are large amount of steam is generated, and most of the steam is also released into atmosphere. So it's also a one type of a GHG emission, because steam is high in temperature. The temperature of the steam is quite high, and it try and increase the temperature of the nearby areas. So GHG emissions we identify for the aluminium industry. As per the report, what exactly they are expecting from us to calculate the GHG emission. Here in the industry, they wanted to just calculate the scope 1 and scope 2 and not the scope 3, which are the mandatory. It's not mandatory. So we have just kept it. So principle, as I discussed, so those principle has to be followed while doing any kind of a GHG accounting. Then steps, first identify the sources, then calculation approach has to be select, then collect the data for the activity and choose the emission factors as per the IPCC rule. Apply the calculation tools and roll up the GHG data to the corporate level. So you have to basically identify the process A, B, C to Z, and then every process will have few emissions and you have to roll up that particular emission to the industry level. So accordingly, we have identified the processes and then just increase it to the or calculated a sum up to the industry level. So now boundaries are considered for different type of activities, operational and the system boundaries. Okay, so this is the scope 1 emission now. Scope 1 emission is stationary combustion, mobile combustion, chemical combustion, and the fugitive emission. We identify the actual sources of that particular emission, and we decided the boundary. Whether it is there in the boundary or if it is not in the boundary, we have also identified that particular thing. Say, for example, stationary combustion is definitely there in the boundary, mobile consumption are in the boundary. So accordingly, we identify the A, B, C, D, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in scope 2 emission, we identify that electricity, one is purchased electricity is there because they are having their own thermal power plant, and that's why it has to be considered into the boundary. Another is steam. Now steam is something, though it is used for the electricity generation by their own power plant, but the steam generation is actually not their own process, and therefore it is purchased steam and not in the ownership facility of the Jharsuguda plant, and therefore that has not been to be considered into the emissions. Direct heating is also considered and direct cooling is also considered. Now global warming potential that we have identified for each and every parameters using the IPCC fourth assessment. Now output is basically now Like this, we have to identify for every parameter and every process for that we are following it. So Portland 1 and Portland 2 total aluminum production is identified, and based on the formulas that we have identified earlier, we calculate the CO2 emission. This is done for the entire year. If you can see the unit, this is done for the entire year. And the total emissions are calculated from the baking formula. Now, this is the process basically 1, 2, 3, 4. So we identified it for the soda ash use, then the PFC emission from the process. Then we have also identified the generation electricity. For everything, we have used this particular April to March 2022 and April to March 2021. For 2 years, we have identified how much are the total emission based on the how much amount of aluminium is generated in the industry. Then we have see that emission for the fuel use, any kind of fuel use, what are the emission we identified, and total output. I'm taking you to there only. Okay, so this is the how output has to be done for any kind of GSG project. So we have to see scope 1, what are the different small parameters that we identified, and how much is the carbon dioxide emission in tons that we calculated. In scope 2, we have this particular purchase electricity, how much emissions are there, and the total emissions of carbon in tons per CO2, tons CO2 is identified. Now, the total amount of aluminium is produced in that particular time is also identified, and that gives you a total tons of carbon dioxide emissions per ton of aluminium. So this is nothing but 15.33. Government has given us a time guidelines that it has to be anywhere between like 15 to 23. So we have at least tried and managed to 15.33. Now this is carbon sequestration. Now we have to identify, okay, we have some emission, we have to do something to reduce the emission. So we have try and try and planted some trees, and by using the trees, we have tried to reduce the carbon emissions. Then using the soil also, we have to try sequestration, and using the plantations at the different villages, not at the location that where the industry is there, at different location, we have to try and reduce some kind of a carbon emissions. So total GHG emissions that is identified using the process and using the different kind of methods has to be sequestered using the plantations, and that we identify as 2,42,526. The total emissions were 3,96,886 tons of CO2, and hence we are trying to reduce the carbon dioxide, which is equivalent to 2.47% of the total emission reduction of a industry. So yeah, this is how usually the carbon emissions and the different parameters of the project is identified, and exactly how they are identified, how we are doing it, that we usually do it. So this is what actually I wanted to present to you guys. And if there are any kind of questions, I'm definitely open to it.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Now I declare that the session is open to all the participants for the question answer. Participants, you can now ask the questions.
You may raise your hands so that I can see it.
Those who want to ask the question, please raise your hand so that ma'am will permit you for the unmute. You can ask the queries in the chat box also.
Nitin Savalkar sir, you can ask question.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Hello. Yeah, you're audible, sir.
Yeah. It was very nice and very much informative session, ma'am.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm having a question related to greenhouse emission. Ma'am, we have a report by Interpanel Government on Climate Change, that is IPCC. Every year they used to have the publishment of these reports.
It's
So
not
along
actually
with
every
this,
year.
we are having Along with this, we are having various cycles of CMIP, CMIP 5, CMIP 6. It is related to the climate change.
Right.
So depending upon, do we have any differentiation in between the greenhouse gases emissions considered in CMIP 5 and right now it is CMIP 6?
Actually, nowadays we are mostly using the IPCC document only. So I'm not aware about there are any differences in between those.
Because I guess for earlier CMIP 5, we had different considerations
Yes,
for
yes.
greenhouse gases emission. And CMIP 6 has, the IPCC is saying that CMIP 6 is the latest version
Yes.
towards the utilization of that climatic
So
data.
mostly now the
I
latest
was just,
version yeah, mostly the latest version ideally we have to use like IPCC now it's in the 6 assessment cycle. So in IPCC definitely
yeah.
we are using the 6 assessment cycle for any kind of a industry calculations.
So do we have any increase in the greenhouse gases emissions considered in CMIP 6? Do we have any factor that we have to multiply by this factor so that greenhouse gas emission will get increased likewise?
No, I think as of now there has not been any kind of like publications on the latest report of CMIC6. So I am not aware about it. But yeah, there has been some publications also there. You have to just search on internet about it because yeah, there must be a changes or increase in the emissions definitely.
In one of the slide you mentioned about baseline emission and projected emission. So
Right.
I'm having a doubt in between these two because what does the baseline emission mean and what does the projected emission means?
Okay, so
What is the
baseline
difference
emission.
between?
Yeah, project emission. So baseline emission is nothing but for any kind of a process, you have to first identify that what are the emissions of that particular process. Suppose, for example, you are boiling 100 ml of water on your routine gas stove. Okay, in that case, you must first understand what are the emissions of using that particular process or using that particular method. What are the X amount of emission that you are getting? And then if you suppose shift from that gas stove to an electric burner, then you will identify the difference between the two emissions, right? So your baseline
Yeah.
emission may be your LPG gas stove emission and your project emission, which you use after some kind of a sustainable technology. So it can be your electric emissions.
Okay.
So this is your
Okay.
project emissions afterward.
Okay.
So you just
Okay.
use those baseline emission to compare those things.
Okay. So that we can take one simple example as use of petrol car
Right,
versus
electrical
use of
cars.
electrical car.
Right. But then again, that is different. If you can't consider that as a project emission and the baseline emission because you have to be on the same ground. So here I am boiling you have to be on the same ground when you are calculating and the emissions. So any for particular industry, you can't shift the entire technology to different thing. This is just for the example I am giving you. Say for example, aluminium company that I have just shared you a case study. The carbon emissions are majorly because of the coal power plants. So
Yeah.
even if the government is imposing lots of statutory actions of setting down the coal power plants, they already have large amount of investment and it's very difficult for them to shut down them. So they have to continue to use them and that's why they are searching for some another kind of methods that can be used to like generate an electricity. So it's a very difficult kind of it's a tricky one actually to identify what are the baseline and what are the project emissions. It may change because of the process to process.
Ma'am, do you think that suppose I'm using a petrol car and a certain amount of greenhouse gases are emitting out of it? And suppose that car has been replaced by the electrical vehicle. Or suppose I'm using electrical vehicle at the same time, and some amount of CH greenhouse gases are also getting emitted through that action. So
Right.
means we are what we can say, we are replacing one thing with another one, and that another process is also emitting some kind of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So what is the use in the replacing the previous thing? Because in the second process as well, we are also having the emission of greenhouse gases, right?
Definitely. So that's what I was suggesting, that we cannot go back and have the pre-industrial level emissions of that particular era, but we have to maintain the carbon emission between 1.5 degree to 2 degree. For that, we have to reduce our existing emission. We cannot definitely make it to like 0 or like 1 or 1.2 or something like that. So whenever you are using the petrochemical car, emissions were definitely higher than using your electrical car. So we are making an effort to reduce the emission as of now. We are not making it to the 0. So this is just a one step ahead of reducing your emissions. So when you start using your electrical vehicle or electrical emission car, you are just reducing your emission and you are not making it into 0. So it's one step better toward the greener environment.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. It was very interactive session. Thank
you so much.
Participants, do you have any other queries? Any other participant? Okay, now we'll proceed towards vote of thanks. On behalf of Bharati Vidyapit's College of Engineering for Women, Pune, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Yamini Pawar, ma'am, for delivering such a thought-provoking and enriching session. Your expertise and insights have been truly valuable to all of us. I also thank all the participants for their active engagement and enthusiasm throughout the session. Thank you, ma'am. Participants are now requested to fill up the feedback link, which will be shared with you all on the WhatsApp group. And are requested to join the next session, which is scheduled on 3rd of February. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ma'am. Sheetal ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants can now leave the session.